Okay.
I am so thrilled to have my co-conspirator on my latest musical. I don't even want to call this an adventure. This is basically a lifeline. Okay, my latest musical lifeline. How do you like that? Stephen Melillo, who is one of the most creative and productive musicians and artists that I have ever known, and I've worked with quite a few. And he realized what I was going through, which happened about, I don't know, 5 months ago, 6 months ago. I went through a stroke. And he understood more than any doctor or anyone else could understand that music is the doctor. I think there was a song that the Doobie Brothers did. Music is the doctor. Music is the doctor, and you kind of knew what could be accomplished with music that I could never accomplish in any other way. So it became an amazing adventure that was a healing process that we created together.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
That's a great introduction. I mean, you nailed the motivation, the inspiration, the theme of the music that we created together.
And it was, sometimes you've seen this. Sometimes words have a hard time of being pure spirit. I mean, words sometimes can be interpreted in many ways. But in this particular case, on this album, which just got completed, it was a whole new way of creating like I've never created before, which I think actually could lay the groundwork for where other people can use music as a healing force, because creating music is a healing force. And you knew that, of course. I knew that. But it wasn't until I ventured into these uncharted realms that I realized where it was taking my mind in places and my belief system in places I'd never ventured before. I could just say right now, how did you know that? And that'd be the end of the interview. I'd just let you talk for half an hour. How did you know that, Stephen?
I don't, years ago, and this just came to my mind. You know how it is, right? This stream of consciousness discussion, and I always go off on these stories, but you tend to like that.
Yes.
But a bunch of years ago, I met a guy who, I guess you'd say he was a paraplegic. He didn't really have the use of his hands, and he was in a wheelchair. And though he had contemplated suicide many times in his life, he actually wound up writing a book to motivate others and inspire others not to commit suicide and to live and to go forward with that.
Wow.
And so I did an interview with him on his show, and I told him he could write music, and he could use the computer to do things that his body couldn't do. And he was like, "Oh, you're going to have to show me that." And I built this thing. I built these things. It's actually sort of cool. And anybody who knows, about how chords are built and so on, they can appreciate what I did. I just took these paint brushes that had like a rubber tip on them so that he could put it in his mouth because he didn't have the use of his hands. And then I had a variety of little pegs that came off of this one stick. So try to visualize like a T, an upside down T, and it's coming from his mouth. And now one of them would make a triad, a major triad.
Wow.
And of course, by shifting it one, you'd make a minor triad. Well, that gives us all the major and minor chords right there.
Wow.
Right? If you're in the key of C, and I push down on C, E, and G, I've got a major triad. If I go up a step, I got D, F, and A. I got a minor triad. Well, guess what? Through transposition, I now have all of the major chords and the minor chords. I also built him a seventh chord, T, upside down T, and I built a suspension, upside down T.
Wow.
And I explained to him that simply by pushing these things into the computer, he could then, through knowledge, through theoretical knowledge, and if ever there was a beauty of the theory of music. I don't call it music theory. I call it the theory of music. If ever there was something beautiful in the theory of music, it's the idea that your mind can go beyond your body and it could create stuff. It could, if you can imagine it, you can do it. Like, for instance, I'll give you a perfect example. I can't play the harp, right? But you hear the harp all over my music, especially the music that we did in our recent album. But when a harp player does a gliss, it would be easy if they were all on the white keys of the keyboard, right? Because then you just like wave your hands up and down. But the problem is that harps don't work that way. Harps are keyed, right? And there's that beautiful word. And there's 7 pedals, and you use these 7 pedals to put flats or sharps or naturals on notes so that you can get glisses in all different keys and so on and so forth. Well, I can do a gliss on the white keys, right?
Yeah.
And once it's in the computer, well, now through the knowledge of theory, I can transpose it to wherever I want so that it works in the keys of the music that we have going on for our work.
It's it's really truly magical how music plays a role, and we have found out as we worked on this project. I think it started out with about 3 songs. I believe it came out. In the beginning, it was fairly short, and it expanded to, upon completion, we were up to 9 pieces.
It started off with 1 song.
Oh, okay.
It started off with 1 song, and it wasn't really even a quote unquote song. It was like a sketch, and it was a theme. And I sent it to you. I said, "What does this do for you? What does this do for you?" Mm-hmm. And you didn't realize it, but you had inspired that piece. See, we talked about this in other interviews. It's this whole circular nation. Is it me inspiring you, or is it you inspiring me? And then it goes back around. Somewhere in your writings on Facebook, you used the term poems of the spirit. Poems of the spirit. And so I said, oh, that's really interesting. And so I thought, but then what are the poems of the flesh? And so I wrote out a sketch for a piece I called Poem of the Flesh, and I sent it to you without telling you any of the stuff I'm telling you now, by the way, and said, what do you think? What do you think of this? And there it was, the snowball at the top of the hill turning into a gigantic avalanche. Rolling.
That is a good way of describing it, except, of course, that melts in time. But in this case, what happened was, it was a journey. It was a journey of self-discovery. But I think almost every album is a journey of self-discovery. You know that. But this was an interesting one for me because, truthfully, I didn't know. I mean, obviously, in the stroke, I can still talk and everything, but I could not read. Okay, I cannot read except a few sentences. So what I normally do is I write every day, and I was able to speak into my phone and write everything every day into words, although I could not read back what I wrote. And then I found things that would play back what I wrote, and then I'd find out sometimes what happens with any kind of devices. Things don't come out the way you think they're going to come out, and they change things. Sometimes the words totally got changed. I was like, what? I didn't say that. So that was an interesting part of it. What part of this interesting journey for me was how long it took, and it wasn't until I was not able, and I've done many spoken word projects, but that means going to my computer, opening up a filing system, getting into there and being able to go in and record. But then I realized, okay, when I'm recording it, I usually will read what I wrote. I couldn't read what I wrote. So I thought, well, what do? I can try to memorize it. Or I thought maybe someone else could be on the phone and read it, and I'll repeat back what I think I even asked you, if you want to read it, and I'll write down, I'll speak it after you read it to me. So there was this problem of being able to speak out what I can't read.
that's one of the neat things that this album is. It's a real time exploration of getting knocked down. It's like think about a person who suddenly goes blind. They weren't born blind, but they go blind. Well, all of a sudden they have to rely on these other senses. Or think of Beethoven, who's losing his hearing, so he has to go to an internal way of hearing music. Or think of Schumann, who loses the use of his pinky finger and the third finger, through a mishap, to become a great piano player, and instead becomes a great composer. And so you think of all these things where it looks like you have to totally adjust yourself to a new way of doing things, but in that moment of becoming this new version of yourself, we actually made music and story as it was happening.
Yes,
so
exactly.
It wasn't after the fact.
No, it was, and I would speak it not knowing what was coming next. Honest to gosh, I would go in there and hit the recording button on my thing. That was a whole process in learning itself, but just go in there and start recording, and to have the faith. Now, here's the reality that's kind of interesting. I've been doing radio most all of my life, and it's okay. I don't write down what I'm going to say. I improvise everything that I'm going to say after I do the break, except back announce or whatever. But when you're doing music, you're using a different part of your brain, and you're letting your spirit and what's in your heart come through. When you're doing radio, that isn't what you do. Right now, I'm talking to you, but I know I'm talking to you, and I know it's on the air. And so I'm not necessarily going to say what I would say if I was going to create something that I consider a piece of work, an actual musical or an innovative piece that comes from my heart. We always I guess I could use the word dumb down. We dumb down what we communicate when it goes to the public many times, most of the time, I would say, right? So not going to the dumbed down state, but try to actually go to that state that isn't got the brakes on, was a very fascinating procedure.
Yeah. For you, it was the difference between being, up to that moment, a classical musician, to use the analogy, right? You're a person who writes down and then reads what you've written. Mm-hmm. So we can look at that as a classical analogy, right? And all of a sudden you had to become a jazz musician. You had to listen to music and improvise.
Yeah.
But it's not like you could improvise and then see the words that you improvised and read them back. You had to improvise live over the music into a recording, and that sort of spontaneity and also, from my perspective, purity, right, makes the whole thing very interesting, because what we're hearing in these tracks are your real-time reactions and feelings to music.
And I still I don't feel like I mastered it 100%. There were limitations, of course, only because I'm still limited by what I can do with some of the complicated parts of recording. But what I am eternally grateful to you, Stephen Melillo, is the fact that you had space enough to understand that, and you, through the mixing and mastering and getting it together, were able to space it correctly and put it in the context of the music that is very, very, very powerful. You know, you and I have discussed this, how music can lift you to places that you normally would put the brakes on. You don't normally go to the heights of pure spirit or inspiration, and you kind of people tend to hold back, right? But in this case, you took it to even where I was held back by the limitations and put music to a very, very powerful new level. And that's why I have it. I mean, we'll play one piece off this, but I mean, the music is amazing. And I mean, I have to tell the truth here because we're telling the truth. I think the music you did still is far superior to the words I could create. And I encouraged you, and we start this album with a piece of music that is mind-blowing and finish it with an even more inspiring place. And when I listen to that music, and you have an instrumental piece in the middle, when I listen to that music, it still says to me things I haven't found the words for yet. But as you know, you don't necessarily need words to have feelings, you know. In fact, that's one of the greatest gifts of music, is that you can let your heart and your soul and everything be lifted by this music that you created. And by any great music, you will be lifted to places you don't have words for. I don't know if I'll ever have words for some of this music.
And you shouldn't.
Yeah.
You know, if someone wrote a piece of music that would clearly define, oh yeah, that's what this piece is about, and now I understand it, it would be done.
Mm-hmm.
It would be done forever.
Yeah.
But now take something like the Adagio from the Mahler Fifth Symphony, which is like one of my favorite pieces. And I started to listen to that when I was 16. Well, if I listened to that music when I was 16, then 17, then 18, then 19, and go all the way to like age 67, there's no way that music tells you the same thing every time. It tells you something that's similar, but as you're evolving, you're hearing different things in that music. Because, and I've always said this, even when I was a teacher, I always said, you know, music is a mirror. And if you have a beautiful piece of music, it's like this absolute clear mirror in which you see yourself. And that's really the greatness of what I think makes a great piece of music, as opposed to, well, okay, yeah, I'm supposed to see this now. I'm supposed to feel this now. There's a time and a place for that, right? You're doing a film score, or you're doing something and you have to, you know, it's there. You have to do what the director asks, or you have to create the picture that's there. But how about the stuff that you can't see? You know, one of my favorite scenes, Cindy, is from Spartacus. And there's a whole scene there where, I get chills. Like, I just want to cry thinking of it, where Spartacus and Varinia are falling in love. And there's no words. It's just beautiful cinematography and great acting in the looks of the eyes and beautiful music by Alex North. And that is profound to me. There was no words. In our situation, we have no film. We have words. And sometimes we need the words because for the same reason that we need the pictures, because they point us in the right direction. And then sometimes we take the words away so that now we give room to the listener for their imagination and for them to apply their understanding of these things to themselves in that musical mirror.
And that musical mirror is such, not only a gift, but it is an opening, okay? So what a great gift that opening really truly is, and that's what, you know, is occurring when you are allowing yourself to be open to the music and to where it goes and to where you maybe had not really wanted to go before, you know, inside yourself. I experience this in meditation all the time. It's like, okay, are you really going deep inside yourself? Can you really experience the highest form of what's there inside you and the highest realms? And you can, you know, a lot of people use drugs or whatever. You know, I'm not talking about doing any of that. I mean, I'm just talking about being able to open up your mind and your heart and your soul to let that energy pour through. But to capture that's the thing. That's what makes great art, in my opinion. That's what makes great music, and that's why I like your music and your 1,400 pieces of music. How many pieces do you have now?
It's around there. I think it's 1374 now.
Getting close, and you're already on a new one. I you know, and it's like, you know, I had so many pieces that I wrote that was so hard to go back and read because I'd have to go back and have it spoken to me and everything, and then I'd have to change it because I'd find out that wasn't the word I was looking for and it came out wrong. But I already have more thought about where it would go if I could get past, again, the limitations. I think for me, it's like, wow, how do I free myself of the limitations that have been imposed by myself and the world on where I can go, Like you were just talking at the beginning of how you created this way for this person who had no ability to open up a new door, to open up the new door. But when you open up a door, it's like there's so much involved in that process. And a lot of it is magical. A lot of it has no limitations, but then there's always the mind that has to keep up with that. And the physical manifestation of how it's brought forth, right? It's an amazing process. It's an amazing process.
Yeah.
So I'm already thinking of where I kind of maybe could have gone further or deeper, or maybe even a little more honestly, what I would do on my next piece, because this is the problem with any creation. Anyone that's written, I think, a book, or anyone that's done music or have done this, anything creative like that before, is you're on this journey, right? This amazing journey. It's I think it's more magical than taking a trip anywhere, because it is a trip. Actually, it's an amazing journey you take on a creating of a process of an album or of a piece of artwork or anything like that, and then you go, wow, all of a sudden it's gone. It's like, oh, but wait, there's more.
Yeah. Well, you know what's interesting? It's really never gone. It's like, so, when you make a recording, that recording is part of history. It's like a photograph.
Yeah.
Right. So if you photograph your kids when they're young, well, thank God you took that photograph, because they're not young anymore. They've changed. Yeah. They've evolved. When you write a piece of music, and this is why, a lot of my music is for scores, right? It's written for the orchestra. It's written for the band, because that music is recreated all the time, rather than just being a recording. So the recording serves as a snapshot of, yeah, this is what the piece basically is at this moment in time, given this technology and given these parameters. But imagine if the Beethoven Fifth was a one-time experience.
Yeah.
It's almost absurd to think of it.
Yeah.
Think of the Beethoven Fifth or the Beethoven Ninth or the Mahler Ninth being a one-time experience. It's done when those guys are alive. They put it on a recording, and it's done. This is that work. No, it doesn't work that way, does it?
Mm-hmm.
We're meant to constantly revisit it. We're changing. The music's changing. The conductors are changing. The hall is changing. Everything it's in a constant state of flux around something that is not changing, which is the spirit of that music. Boy, that's pretty deep. That's deep.
Well, it is, isn't it? Gosh, you're going to take me down a rabbit hole. I'm going, wait a second. I mean, in classical music, it can be done and played thousands of times over again. But when you're doing a recorded piece that doesn't have the classical, other people can play it element, there is, unfortunately, and I'll have to figure out how you get past that, the limitation of the one time it was done, and it isn't. I think there's got to be a way to figure this out.
There is a way. Ready?
Okay, I'm ready.
So you're in Hawaii, right?
Yeah.
And you go to some place like a really cool nightclub, but a quiet place, like a bar, like the beatniks used to do, like in the old days, and they have the conga, and the guy would like ad lib, and he'd like do the poetry thing. Okay, you take our tracks minus the words, minus the poetry, and you just play the track back, and it's like a jazz band now, right? Here it is. Here's the music in the background, and there's Cindy at the microphone, and it's an improv, and you're
that'd be so
telling
difficult.
the story. And imagine,
so difficult.
Imagine if you did 100 renderings.
No two could be the
just
same.
Think about it.
Yeah, no two could be the same.
And then somebody would be, oh my God, I'm the one. I got the 98th version on my cell phone, and that's the one that speaks to me. Just picture it that way.
Yeah, boy, my gosh, that's amazing. Actually, I'd never ever considered that. To me, writing is such a private thing and such a personal thing, and such an inner thing that I had never even considered that. And yet here it is, and it is recorded, it is going out there, and it's not released yet. It's in the process of being released. I mean, by the way, you came up with a beautiful title and a beautiful picture. Talk about that for a minute, because it's really lovely, and we're in the process of getting ready to release it. It's not released yet, but it's in that process.
Yeah, let's see if. So I'm looking at the libretto now, a 14-page libretto. I just want to say, yeah, here's the last sentence from Steve in the libretto, and I have a picture of the comet, by the way.
Oh yeah.
The Atlas comet. I have a photograph of it, and it's really cool with the clouds and everything. And here's my last thought from the libretto. It says, "All of us have fallen often, but it's when we're flat on our backs that we finally look up and realize what we've been missing. Even in pain and in defeat, everything is a matter of spirit." And that is the title of the album, Matter of Spirit.
Ah, yes. Thank you for clarifying that. It's so great to be able to see it all put together and interpret it, because it's such a work in progress was what I was going to say, but the work in progress is pretty complete now, except for how we get to the part that's hardest for me, which is promoting and trying to get to that level of promoting what that process is about. It's such an inner process. To bring it out is always a challenge for me. And that is what you have to deal with is okay, this is what was the inner process that came out. Now, how do you foster it? How do you birth it? How do you keep it to that level you were at, and still try to keep it as pure and as strong and as powerful as how it was created? And sometimes it's hard to do that, because marketing, well, you and I were talking about marketing, I think, because we were getting through the Grammy stuff and the promotion and stuff. Marketing becomes somehow watered down, or I don't know how to describe marketing, but marketing can often lose a little bit of the purity of the creation, I fear. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely.
And we saw this, of course, during Grammy voting time, with the first voting Grammy session, and we'd see everyone, kind of, you have everything brought up to the level where, gosh, this has got to be the greatest thing. When you read what was sent to you, this has got to be the most amazing thing ever done. And then you listen to it and going, it's not really the greatest thing ever done. But I don't mean to. There are some things we discovered that are absolutely amazing, But the thing is, in marketing, everyone exaggerates a lot, and a lot of people don't take the time to even listen, because they just read the words and they believe what they're told, So in that process, I get a little nervous, because then there's that what's really real and what's not, and trying to maintain the intensity and purity of the experience is sometimes hard when you try to put in words to market it.
Mm-hmm. And you're talking to the wrong guy.
I know.
I mean, when you go, Steve, I want your advice on marketing. I mean, you're really talking to the wrong guy. It's sort of funny. The Stormworks thing. I mean, if you talk to a bunch of people, they say, oh my God, that guy Melillo, he did this whole thing. He bypassed publishers, and he brought the music to the fan world on his own. He self-published from all the way back from 1988. He was doing all this stuff, and it sounds like I know what I'm doing. And then people say, "Well, wait a minute. Can you tell me how to do that? Can you tell me how to do?" And so I said, "Yeah." I said, "You write the music, and then you let people know that you wrote the music." And they look at me.
Yes,
I've had this happen so many times. I came out of the concert at the Gavon House. They did David in Amsterdam. They did David in the Netherlands, and we came out of the Gavon House, and there was all these university students around me, and they were like, "Please come to our conservatory, and please please write a book on orchestration, and please share. I said, I can tell you how to orchestrate right now. We don't need a book. And they go, oh, and they they got pens out. I'm not kidding. And they get their program and this, and I go like this. I go, write high for the piccolo and low for the tuba.
That's sneaky.
And, it's a Zen kind of a thing, because I didn't mean it as a joke.
Uh-huh.
I mean, if you really understand the instruments, you understand their character. That's what orchestration is to me, is character.
Yeah, but that's not taking it to the level that we're trying to talk about doing, right? Because it's what the magic that I fall in love with in music is what happens in the creation and how to maintain that magic when it comes out to the public. That's the hardest part. Yeah,
because you can't do anything. You have to go to someone else. That's their business. That's their skill.
Yeah, maybe.
And that's not our skill set.
Yeah, that's the truth. That's the truth. Are we going? There's going to be a part 2 to this. I've been told. That there's going to be a part 2 to this release, right?
No, maybe. I mean, so I took this piece that comes in the middle, the piece Tense in Time.
Yes.
And, originally I was writing that for tuba, right? Because I'm coming off the concerto for tuba. And I was talking to a guy, a tuba player, and he wanted a piece. And I said, well, how about, and he was describing this whole languid sort of bel canto singing quality of the tuba, and we could write it with a background. And so I started writing that, and then I said, oh my gosh, we have to put this on our album too, because it's part of the story. And actually right now I'm writing a first movement, or actually a second movement, another movement to that piece, Tense in Time. And of course that's going to lead to Matter of Spirit Part 2 by the time we're done.
Yes.
Because there's offshoots,
Yes, I know about that. And it kind of the offshoots give me hope for being able to continue to create, of course. I'm going to play a piece here, and it's hard deciding which piece to play. I don't know which piece. I'll figure it out. But I am going to play a piece here, and it's going to lift my spirit and hopefully give a little bit of an example of what we've been up to. When is the release date planned for this wonderful work?
So I actually think that it's ready now,
but
we picked the formal date of November 19th.
Okay.
So that it would be ready for Thanksgiving and then Christmas and so on. So it's there. I think it is already there. But November 19th, it should be on every DSP. So,
wow, something to look forward to for Thanksgiving. I almost thought maybe we shouldn't have waited so long, but it's out there now the way it is. I don't think that can change. But okay, so this is a tease. You'll be able to hear a little bit of this, and it'll give you an idea, just a little. But you have to hear the whole thing because it is all meant to go together. So this is a major piece. For me, it was life-changing. And I am always forever grateful for you leading that and giving me that opening to be able to create and to open a door that I had never dared to open before. And you're a wonderful instrument of spirit, my friend, and I am forever grateful. So thank you, and thank you.
Thank you.
And aloha.
Okay.